When are you too old to enjoy video games? And of course, as a parent, you have to ask the question, when is a child too young? Also, I have a very distinct, specific memory of the first day I played Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And I was aware, and I didn't just think this in my own mind, I articulated it to my parents. This is the last time I'll ever be able to lose my objectivity and get caught up in the moment of playing a new video game. And it was. I was right. And it shows the kind of peculiar vocabulary I used as a kid. I was correct in saying that the excitement I felt playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I was never going to feel again when Sonic the Hedgehog 3 came out or what have you. In the sequence of Sega Genesis games, I was enough of a kid mentally, I was enough of a child, that when Shining in the Darkness came out, I unquestioningly and robotically played it from beginning to end. As if, just the fact that I own this game means I have no choice. Of course, I was way more committed to playing this game than doing my schoolwork or learning anything. It's just not a question. It's not an option. I own this. Therefore, I'm going to play it from beginning to end, even if I have no understanding of why it's so repetitious and why it wastes so much of the time. And I never used a pen and paper with that game to make a map. I just memorized the layout of every level. That was my childlike way of thinking. So that's Shining in the Darkness. I think 1 or 2 years later, Shining Force comes out. And by that time, I've already got this kind of ironical detachment about it. I'm not losing my objectivity. But that game had a sense of humor, and I played it through once. But by the time Shining Force 2 came out, I was too old. I was, I think, too wise and too detached. There couldn't be any joy anymore in engaging in a completely meaningless series of repetitious actions, building up points, building up strength, building up score, or even beating the game. And, some of you will say, oh, well, these things are story-driven. Well, yeah, but once you've reached a certain level of maturity, even today, I was on the train today. You had a long train journey. Would I rather read a book about real political history, but any well-written book, really, fiction or nonfiction? Would I rather read something of substance or spend hours grinding through a game that gives you just a few sentences of text with some poorly written story about an elf and an orc or a prince and a princess, this garbage, No. So once you reach a certain age, you really are too old for video games. And, the sense of excitement I had, I'll give you an example. The first time I played Elevator Action, obviously as a very small child, where I just had no idea what was going to happen next. My first time playing Sonic 1. My first time playing Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, which probably was within one calendar year, by the way, those two games. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I guess Wonder Boy 3, 1989. Anyway, with a sense of exploration as a player, right? When you're really a child, every time you open a door, you have no idea what's going to be behind that door. When you play as an adult or as a teenager who has the kind of detachment and analytical perspective adult, you know exactly the same thing is going to happen every single time you open a door. You realize how mechanical and uninspired and uninspiring the whole genre of video games is. You realize that you yourself are being reduced to the role of a machine in putting in the check marks and the check boxes, in kind of completing an examination or a test that's been written for you. But of course, it's a test that teaches you nothing. It's a test you benefit nothing from. But yeah, I'll throw this open to the audience, to anyone in the comment section. In this sense, was there a moment in your life when you realized, I'll never be excited this way again? Or maybe for you it was in retrospect, looking back. You look back and realize, when I first opened and played Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I was full of excitement and wonder in this way. Again, part of which is not knowing the sense of excitement. You don't know what's going to happen next. And for me, by the time Sonic 3 came out, I'd achieved too much wisdom. This again. And again, it wasn't just that one series. It was for all video games. By the time Shining Force 2 came out, I could not care less. By the time Shining Force 3 came out, in my case, it wasn't that I was fascinated with alcohol or chasing women. But we can at least say my interests were firmly rooted in the real world and not in this peculiar form of escapist fantasy. And look, I mean, I can't punish you for your honesty. Maybe there are some guys in this audience who are 50 years old, and they can say they never reached that point yet. Maybe you're still unwrapping a new video game and responding with the same excitement that I had when I played Sonic 2. But I knew at that moment, at that time, it was my first time ever playing the 3D bonus stage, which is, I guess, at the end of the first level or so of Sonic 2. Of course, I was just blown away by this 3D effect. Never seen anything like this before. And I thought, this sense of excitement I have now, I am never going to have it again. And I was right. Video games always had been meaningless. But I now understood that they were meaningless, and soon enough I felt that they were meaningless. And so they could never have this kind of grip over me again. They could never bring about this kind of thrill.